All right, I'm glad you all are with us this morning. This is going to be really informal. I don't have a lot of anything scheduled and planned. I'm going to start off with just letting you all kind of throw questions. What are some questions that you have, hot topics? I do have some questions that were sent in. So I'm going to let those of you that are with us start off with like questions, hot topics that you may have, and then we'll kind of filter to some of the questions that were sent in to me as well. And so, who has a good question for us to start with? And I'll share my screen. We'll walk through. The purpose of today is we really just want you to be successful and feel success and not to have any worries about, am I doing everything that I need to be doing in the grant, or can I be, more successful in the grant? And that's kind of the purpose of today. So if you have any questions, don't feel like that it's a silly question. Don't feel like it's a question. If you need to know how to find something on the website or, anything like that, feel free to ask any of those today, and we will make sure you know everything. And we do have Rebecca on here, and she's a veteran with us, so she can kind of help too. So feel free to ask away. And like I said, we will make sure you know before you leave today, and you will be a pro, and I'll be sending people your way. So if you,
I'll go.
okay, go for it.
I really don't have any questions. I just feel like this year that I'm just not with it.
Hey,
So
that's
I
all of
wanted just
us.
to come and make sure I'm on track. So
That's all. I, I think everybody is just kind of scurrying around. I know myself included, but I think COVID is we're all kind of having to, I, that word, we heard it yesterday, Dr. Evans and I, but everyone's having to kind of pivot, and kind of prioritize things, in lieu of COVID. Not that that is a bad thing, but, now with the grant especially, our focus has been we do not want to add work onto you. So we've tried to make sure that everything that we're doing works alongside. So what you'll find is we've tried to simplify. Like Rebecca was with us last year, there were some processes that we had in place where, it felt like a lot of duplication of work. So we really tried to simplify a lot of our processes. So you didn't have to like scan a form, copy it, send it in. So now everything is like Google Forms. And we've really tried to make it a lot simpler because we know your jobs are extremely hard. We know that your first priority, of course, is being with kids, and we see the amazing work. Thank you, first of all. We see the amazing work that you're doing each and every day in classrooms. So please do not feel like that does not go unnoticed, because we know what you're doing each and every day. So thank you for that. And so everything that we're doing with this grant, we do want to just come alongside and say, hey, you're already doing this in your classroom. Let us come along and let us pay you, first of all, because we know you're doing great things. So we're looking for a way that within the confines of the grant, we can pay you, or that we can celebrate that. We can show the U.S. Department of Ed, hey, we've got history educators, we've got ELA educators that are already doing this work. Let us pay, let us pay them. Adam, your question is, will I find everything I need in Charge Year 4 documentation folder? Let me pull that back up. Okay, I noticed there are about 6 to 7 shared folders, which are slightly confusing to me. Okay, so let's hit that first question, because that's a good one. I am not sure. So this is the end where I'm not sure what all has been shared with you all. A little bit of Gabby shares that information with you. So if you can, let me see. I'm going to show you what I think you should have. Maybe. Let me show you this. So in that documentation folder, I'm going to pull up Adam's maybe. Adam, is that okay if I pull up your folder, just since you asked that question? It's a really good
Yeah,
question.
that's fine.
Okay. So let me go to what you should have. Perhaps if I can get there. Because Gabby is amazing. She shares all of, she's the behind the brains of all the Google stuff for you all. And unfortunately, what happens is our goal was that once we have like your invoices, for example, so in that folder, you should have your invoices. You should have any like additional, for example, let me pull this up. You should have invoice 1, invoice 2, and then she's added little side notes, like for example, your peer coaching mentoring, like Newsela, how to do the Newsela, all of those forms, all of that should be in there. And those are kind of how to, she's dropped in just like how to pieces. Sometimes when you get all of that information, it is a little overwhelming, but let me open up your folder here.
Like, I guess kind of what confuses me is like when I look at all the documents that were shared, is it looks like there are almost like when I look in my Google Drive, there is about 6 or 7 folders, and they're like all named the same thing. They're all named charge year 4, and
Okay.
there's one specific one that has the number 1 in front of it. And that's where I found some of the things I need, but where there's like so many of them and they're all named like the same thing, I just don't even really, I'm just kind of
Yeah.
confused with all the information.
Yeah. And here's my really honestly, let me give you this piece of advice. And that's a really good, I'm really glad that we're starting here. So for the basics, this is where I would tell everyone, especially if you're new, to start. And this is kind of what I said in my orientation video. If I were you, I would just go to and print off. This is just the simplest way that I have found. And Rebecca, you tell me if you disagree with this. And this is what I've told the other grant that's starting up as well. I would print off a copy of your invoice. And this invoice, remember, it is a dynamic document. It's changing because, like, for example, today, this was something that was added. So don't think you can print this off in August or, like one time a year and it's going to stay the same throughout the year. We hope, our goal is that this will, it's not going to deviate too much. But as we get new programming, it will change a little bit. So we hope it's not going to change too often and too much. But my simple advice, the simplest way to do charge would be to print this off. Put it in a folder. Google is great, but I'm still enough old fashioned that I like the hard copy printouts because, like you said, Adam, it is a little daunting. Sometimes people copy folders, and that may be what's going on is somebody's went in and they made a copy, and so you see copy 1. I think that may be what's going on, and I'm going to dig into yours in just a second and find out. But I would just print out, as long as you have invoice 1 and as long as you have invoice 2 and you have those printed out, you're going to be fine. And because Gabby is going to tell you, hey, I need this from you. And the only thing that I will let you know is at the end of the year, all I need is a signed invoice 1, and I need a signed invoice 2. And I will be coming and requesting those. I will let you know either the week before conference, like if you say, hey, I've got vacation, I can't come to conference, or if you say, I will be at conference, then I'm going to come around and I'm going to actually collect this for you. I'll say, I can print it, or you say, I've got it and I'm bringing it with me. But my goal to you, or my advice to you, would be you keep this, and as we change things, you'll say, oh, Wendy, I don't see, and you all help me with that too. That you all are a big help in that. And like Rebecca said, she highlighted what she attended, and it's kind of an ongoing. It's just my advice, and this is what I have suggested, is you kind of highlight what you want to attend throughout the year, and then check it and circle, like you would circle your payment as you have attended. For me, it kind of keeps things on my radar. Like, I know I want to go to the National Writing Project. I don't want to miss MTSS. I know these are things that I'm going to go ahead and kind of schedule. I want to attend, so I'm going to highlight it. And then as I have attended, I'm going to circle which payment method. You're going to get, remember, full credit. So that first row, you'll get full credit, like $40, which, if it's a 2-hour training, you get $20 an hour. But in the second column, you would get half credit if it's a recorded. So to me, that's just the simplest way versus trying to get into Google. Now, there are Google superstars among us. There are some of you that can go in and you can, turn it into a PDF and you can edit on it and do all those great snazzy things. At the end of last year, I had people that did amazing things on their, PDF forms, which was great. But for me, I'm just enough of tech savvy that I still like the printed out copy. To me, I just think, oh, this is safe, because if Google were to lock up or freeze up or the internet were to crash or, whatever, I still have this in front of me. So that's my main piece of advice is I like it. I would print it out. And then that kind of also keeps you like it's a progress. It's an ongoing, like, hey, you can also add it up. Again, Dr. Evans laughs at me all the time because I want to know, we want you to attend everything you can attend, but remember on invoice one, you cannot make more than $1,500. So it also gives you that running roster of where you're at on the payment schedule. So you could be adding up as you go. Well, I'm already up to $800. I can make X amount more. So to me, it kind of gives you that running record of where you're at.
Yeah. And I would, again, like Wendy said, keep it as simple as possible. If you're not, you can go into Google but I wouldn't go in there and look and manipulate any forms or anything like that. I would print off a hard copy, and Rebecca's got great points here, highlighting and then putting a dot beside what she wants to attend, and then kind of doing a check every so often. Of course, if you email Wendy, please CC me and Gabby in that, so we're all on the same page, so we won't triplicate. She won't email me, then I email Gabby, then we go full circle. So we need to push that out to everybody, that because I know Wendy's getting lots of Q&A, and then Wendy's having to go to Gabby, and Gabby's coming to me, and then I'm going back to Gabby and back to Wendy. So, but anyway, yeah, just keep it as simple as possible. But that hard copy sheet, I agree 100%. I've got a folder with every grant that we've got, literally every grant we have, with every budget that I carry with me everywhere I go. So when I get a question, boom, I can pull the folder out versus going into Google and checking, and double checking. So Adam, we want this to be as simple as it can be, and as fun as it can be, and not difficult for you. So don't, please just.
The Google, and Adam, just to kind of give you, we wanted you to have access to all the forms, but we don't want the forms to be cumbersome or labor, too labor intensive for you. So really that's just a resource for you. But if it's boggling you down, and just know all you do is you need to have access to the invoices, but we don't want it to stress you out in any way. So don't feel like you have to do things with the forms. They're just there as a resource. That's kind of your resource file, is my best piece of advice. So don't think you have to be doing anything with them. You have to be updating them. They're a resource, and if that resource is stressing you out, don't use it.
Adam, Gabby will remind you, you'll get an email, Gabby, if there's something that you should inform Wendy. So Laura, my question is about, I'm not 100% sure about what type of things to reflect on.
Okay. Laura, we will get to that just a second. Rebecca has a really great point. Everything you need, like Google form folders, are great. Gabby has shared everything in that Google form with individual people, but really everything you need is on our website. Like there should be no need to go any further to find anything else, because really our website has everything. But Gabby's sent it out individually to every person as well. So we've really made sure that we've kind of double hit every person, if that makes sense. But again, I would just print it out so you have printout copies. That's me. Again, I'm enough old school and tech savvy that I've got both. I'm with you, Rebecca. I really hadn't used the Google until the end. If you have to, Laura. Moving on to your question, the reflection form. Here is my best piece of advice on reflection forms. What I would do again is I would kind of print out your reflection, kind of so that you know what questions will be asked of you on the reflection, or kind of jot those out. And you can reflect on any lesson. It does not specifically have to even be your history lesson, but it's going to walk you through. The only thing that you probably won't be able to print out is like your history standards. It will ask you, like history standards at the end. But like, for example, we do have ELA teachers in this grant. We do have, we have special education teachers in this grant. So there may be times that you will not have a history lesson per se. And that's okay. But it will ask you to reflect on just a teaching lesson. And it will ask you things like, what happened in that lesson? Was that a lesson? Did everything go according to plan? Was there anything that surprised you in the lesson? And so it's really your teaching practices. It's asking you to think about, as an educator, were there things that you would change? Are there things that you would do differently? And then if you're watching a mentor teacher, you may talk to them after the lesson and you may reflect on, well, were there any surprises? Were there things, what happened in throughout the lesson? Like, was it a really good introduction? And then maybe at the end, when they started, when they gave them the task, there were lots of there's confusion. So if you are evaluating on yourself, you're kind of reflecting on that process. But if you're in another charge teacher's room, you may say, and again, it's just like what you would do with anything else. You may talk to them at the end, and that teacher may say, well, I had planned it this way and it went awry at this point. So it's really to kind of help you grow as an educator. And what we have found already in the people that have done reflections is they were like, this has really kind of helped me in other lesson planning, because I've learned that I spend way too much in the introduction and not enough time for students to actually, plan, to do their own, So what we're finding is already in the small snippets of time that people have done the reflections is they're really, like anything else, when we reflect, we do grow. So that's the whole purpose of it, is just for you to have that time.
I keep getting kicked off, so I'm sorry. I've had to switch. I've had to go back and forth between two routers here, so it's crazy. Laura, did that answer your question though about the reflection piece, or was there something more specific to that?
No, I think it does answer my question, and I kind of wondered, like, do we always need the reflection to be about the content itself, or do you want situations in the class? If we have I don't know what an example is. We have a situation in class where there's problems between students or something like that type of thing, how we address that situation, or if it's just content related.
It may be a various assortment. Like, we had someone, I'll give you an example. We had someone who reflected on an NTI lesson, and they actually, they were an NTI day, and they said, this is the way I presented the lesson. And in my head, I thought it was going to go this way, but the technology didn't work. Students had, and so they reflected on an NTI day, which I thought was great, because I would have never thought to reflect, but that's real life. That's teaching for us now. We don't always have the teacher stands in front of the classroom. So you may be reflecting on group work lessons that didn't go well. You may be reflecting on NTI lessons where you have technology troubles, where kids aren't logging on. Teaching today looks totally different than teaching 3 years ago. So, think about your reflections.
So I teach. You mentioned you do have some ELA teachers. Like, I teach social studies and writing and language, like all of that together, all the extra stuff in 5th grade. So I can do my reflections on any of those topics, right?
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And we'd love it, because that's what kind of brings, I would love to read yours, because that's exactly what I did in 5th grade. So, yay.
Well, and Laura, we want this to be a help to you, not just something that it's a compliance piece to where you're just doing it for us. Please utilize this and reflect upon, if you're doing something brand new or you're trying something new, reflect upon that to see, kind of like a plus delta mindset of what went well, what didn't go well, what would I do differently next time. I would not recommend doing it at the same thing. I would mix it up. This, again, we want this to be beneficial for you in your teaching practice and in your classroom, and how that impacts what you do with kids. So,
right.
So that's the big piece of it, but I would definitely mix it up some.
Yeah, that's another thing. I was kind of like, well, I've already reflected on something like that once. I don't want to do that again. Right. So I don't want to be too redundant.
Yeah, and we, like Dr. Evans said, we want this to be a help to you. Yes, the money is nice, because I don't know if you've seen the bonus, to do reflections, you can do 55 and make $300. That's great. But the end all be all is, by the time you've reflected on 55 lessons, what's your ending gain as a teacher? Well, if I reflect on myself 55 times as an educator, I'm going to grow times 55. So,
and what's interesting, what you could do, I don't know, what district are you in, Laura? I haven't identified everybody. I know where Rebecca's at, because she's been with us, but
That's fine. I'm Pulaski County.
Okay, well, you know, what you could do even, this would be an interesting thing if your district, if you have walkthroughs in your building and things like that, is after, you know, if your principal comes in or an instructional coach comes in, maybe if they do reflection, then you do a reflection, it would be interesting to do a side by side. I'm just thinking of ways that you could be creative with these reflect. You don't have to do that anyway. You can do it any way you want to, but just to improve your practice is what I'm saying. So that's just an idea too, but it's flexible, but it's ultimately a way for you to continually improve what you do in your class. So, and you know, that's it in your practice.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have other questions that are burning topics right now? Okay. All right. So Adam, I do want to walk through. Absolutely. I do not want you to leave here at all without having clarity on the invoices. All right. So we're going to walk through an invoice together real quick so that everybody knows how to fill one out. I do not want you to,
Hey, Adam, and while Wendy's doing that, I'll talk about this. There will be payment at the end in the summer, so you won't have to worry about doing any invoicing or anything at all right now. Nothing. We're keeping track of that with the Google form. And when you attend and you do an evaluation, that's your sign in. That's the way we track that you've been there. So again, you won't be submitting anything at all. And when we do final payment, which will be in their summer conference before June 30th, that's when we take your invoice by hand. Wendy will check, someone else will check, we'll go through, we'll tally, we'll double check and see what you have matches what we've got. And then of course, you're going to get to the 40. You won't have any problems if you do what you've been doing. So you don't have to worry about any invoicing at all. And the contract and the W-9 was just to say that you're charged in the charge grant. We have to have that for our grant. And the number two, the W-9 is when we do submit invoices at KEDC, we run it through payroll and they push it back to you. So anyway, Wendy's going to show you that. I hope that helps you, but yeah, you don't have to invoice, do anything at all other than what we do you can track your hours and then we will do all the rest. It will fall into place.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
No, Adam.
Go ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So that was one of my big questions is, you know, like one of my big questions with the W-9 and everything is I wanted to know, if there was something that was going to be mailed, like when I file my taxes, you know, here coming up in the next little bit, I didn't know if there was something with charge that was going to have to be filed. But if we're not receiving payment until June, that probably wouldn't even matter, right?
You will not get anything this year. Next year you will
right.
receive a 1099 if you make, like, for example, I have some teachers who do not make enough to receive a 1099 because they don't do enough, you know, on their, you know, they don't make enough on their invoices. But some of my teachers, they make $2,200 or, you know, a roundabout. So they will receive a 1099 in the mail. But some teachers, they only make, you know, maybe $500 or they only do enough to make, you know, they don't make enough money from our grant. You know, they do, you know, they do enough to get their 40 hours, but they don't do the extra, all the excess work. So if you do make enough, whatever, I don't know, that qualifying factor for a 1099, you will receive that for next year.
And Rebecca just typed in the chat there. She received hers yesterday, I guess. So
For last year.
Adam, I mean, on none of that, you won't have to do any of that again. And that's the way the USDOE works is we draw down money, but we can't do any payments for like invoicing until we get through. Everybody has an opportunity to earn their max hours and then things like that. So then we do that in summer conference. Then we submit those to our office at KEDC. And sometimes that takes a week or a couple weeks for them to process because we're transitioning over into a new fiscal year, July 1. But yet, then checks will be mailed out. So you won't have to do anything as far as invoicing or anything, and you won't get anything this year as you're new into charge. So I hope that helps.
Okay, Adam, I want you to know about this resource. So if you go to our website, we've updated it. It's a little fancier, a little nicer. It's kycharge.kedc.org. And I've sent that out, and you all should have, should know that kind of updates now. And you'll go to resources. And again, like Rebecca said, this website is it's your know all be all end all for all things charge. If you play around, you'll kind of get the layout of the website. But if you click on teacher resources, and then under teacher resources, there's a wonderful little tab here called Performance Sheet. Now, this will be your best friend because if you click on Performance Sheet, this will exactly tell you your performance in the grant. Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Adam, have you seen this?
I've looked and I've got it. I've got my screen split on my computer right
Good.
now. So yeah, I'm in the Zoom and I'm looking at this performance sheet because yeah, like sometimes that's been one thing. Like this sheet, like it was just kind of, kind of like you said, it was just kind of daunting to me just looking at all of it. And so I will kind of look at like the attendance.
Uh-huh.
And so it says right now that my total, I guess, would you say paid hours?
Your total cadre hours. Uh-huh. So that's like every
Cadre
session
hours.
that you attend. Uh-huh.
So that means that I've filled out 10 of the 40 hours so far, right?
Right. Now, here's what I want to tell you. There are times that if you look back over this sheet, this is where I need your help, okay? Because this is where you print out this wonderful invoice for me, because there are times, and Rebecca can tell you, we're all human. I mean, I leave sessions. This is why, and I know you all get sick of hearing me say, please fill out the session evaluation. But I get it. Life happens. You all may, be in your car driving down the road and you're like, oh, I'm going to fill out that session evaluation as soon as I get home. So Gabby can only enter in the spreadsheet your attendance based on that evaluation form. So this is where I need you to go in. And so you'll see how it reconciles here in just a moment. So if you say, oh gosh, I'm not going to ever remember how to fill out my invoice, this is our records. So if you go to Adam Mullins, you could see that we have you listed, marked down for, you came to our first orientation and you got 2 hours for a recorded session. And you would go ahead and you would circle, that your payment on the invoice for those hours. And then you could come down and you could see, where do we have you again? Well, look, we have you for 12/2. We have you for 1 hour. We have you on 12/8 for another 2 hours. We have you on 12/14 for another hour. We have you on 110 for another. This is our attendance roster for you. Now, what happens is you may say, Wendy, I was at this Wednesday 12:15 session. And I'll say, Adam, I don't have your session evaluation. All I would do at that point is send you the session eval and you would fill it out. And then we give you your attendance. Because, chances are you were there. Absolutely. I know it. You know it. I can look back at Zoom records and see it. You just forgot to fill out that session evaluation form. And so that's why you fill this out. And that's why we keep this on you. So if you look, that's what we do. And this is why you do this, because your records are probably a little more accurate. Well, I shouldn't say probably a little more accurate, but that's why we have, again, a KDC checks and balances, if you will. We keep records and you keep records, but our records have to match at the end of the year. So at the end of the year, we'll say we have you down to receive this much money. So if you click at the bottom where it says 3, like the little tab down there at the bottom, it says charge stipend amount. Right now, we have you set to earn. This is just based on, right now, you can already see how much money we have you set to earn. Maybe if I scroll down enough.
I may have looked before. I think it might have been maybe 180 or something like
that. So right now, I think we have you for, I can't even see how much on stipend 1 or invoice 1.
And while you're looking at that, Wendy, Rebecca's typed in the chat about her invoice being a working document, and in June, it'll be neater, more and better completed. And then we've got, and Laura asked a question: do you print new ones out each time they add a new session, or just write it in?
Just right. Yeah. I mean, whichever, Laura, if you're really type A like me, I would probably print one out just because I'm super type A, but you can just write in a session. Like today, I would probably just pencil in, or over to the side, I would say, hey, we did that way you kind of know. I did add this session on our new on a new invoice, so it's nice and pretty. I added it in, I made a new box, all of that. It just kind of depends on the person. Some people are like, I'm not going back after I've highlighted and made all my notes, and they make a note, which is completely fine. And then they do make a pretty one at the end. Listen, it's whatever is up to the teacher. You all should know that by now. I'm completely flexible. But Adam, does that kind of help you a little bit with kind of understanding how to reconcile your invoice, and you just, all you're doing on this invoice is you're circling, basically you're going to put on the box, it'll say circle 1, are you virtual? The V is virtual, the I is in person, and the R is recorded, and then how much money you're going to earn for that. And the first column is always if you're virtual or in person. The second column is always if you're watching a recorded. Like, you get half the money if it's a recorded, because you only get $10 an hour if it's recorded. Whereas if it's in person or virtual and you're watching it live, as it's happening, you get $20 an hour.
Okay. So my big takeaway, and the main thing that I wanted to know for sure is, so I don't have to worry about, so you're saying I don't have to worry about filing anything on my taxes this year, because the payment wouldn't even come until after this tax year.
Yes.
Because that's the main thing with me is, I mean, I just wouldn't want to somehow accidentally there be some kind of issue when it comes to the money or something like that. So that sounds good. My other question is, so currently I've got 10 of the 40 hours, and we're going to have like some sessions in person in Lexington over the summer, right?
Right.
Where that would be kind of like, for instance, if I ended up, like, if somehow something happened and I was only, I didn't have quite as many hours, there would be an opportunity to earn large chunks of hours over the summer in Lexington.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
And we're working on that. Adam, we're working on the summer conference right now. It could be anywhere from 3 to 5 days at 6 to 7 hours a day, back to back to back there. So if you come every day to the conference, you could get 30 hours, you could get potentially 40 hours there if you come and attend every day. So we're working on that week right now. So that, there'll be other opportunities, and there'll be other face-to-face events that we've got planned right now as well. Moving forward on some Saturdays, hopefully coming face to face in a few days. So,
Yeah.
Also, while I've got you all here, what's the deadline on receiving those 40 hours? Like, you have to have the 40 hours by this day. Do we know?
Just by summer conference.
By summer conference.
By summer conference. Yeah. Everybody by summer conference, which is June, what is it? 15th, June.
I think it's June. It's June 13th, 14th, or somewhere in there. Yeah, it's June 13th through the 17th or 18th. Right now is what we've got. Yeah. Yeah,
and that would be by the end of the summer conference, meaning the hours that you
by
could
the end,
acquire at that conference would count. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. One other question, I'm looking through here. One other question that came up that I was sent in, and you all may have some really good ideas for this. Miss Brandy Holzclaw is at Governor's Scholar today, and she sent in a really good question about student engagement. We one of the opportunities, if you look on your invoice too, let's see. And I don't even see it now. I think we did change it. So that was maybe from last year. So let's do a rundown from our invoice 2. So on invoice 2, you can earn money through Twitter. So 1 tweet per month. And people started at different times this year. So I know I put on there, November through June. If you started, we're going to let you tweet from the month that you started. So do not worry. I know there was lots of people who said, oh, Wendy, I started at this. As long as you're actively tweeting, and here's our thought, here's our justification on that. It is a picture's worth 1,000 words. I can say, we're doing great things in Charge. But if Rebecca Barker tweets in her classroom all the great things she's doing in Charge, that's going to be a lot more powerful than Wendy King from the Charge account saying teachers are doing great things in their classrooms. So the evidence that you can do, and you can show the great things that you're doing with your students or in your classrooms, U.S. Department of Ed follows our Charge account. Rebecca knows this. Last year, I am 100% convinced that because of you all, we got refunded for this grant, because they saw the things that you all, Rebecca, exactly. They saw things that you all were doing in your classrooms. They saw how active you all were on Twitter. So that's why we tweet. We tweet because it also promotes awareness for the great things that you all are doing. Teacher reflections are on invoice number 2. And then I think, Brandy, so I'm going to answer your question on here. I think we replaced the student engagement activities because it was so ambiguous. And Dr. Evans, you help me if I'm wrong on this. There was so much. Actually, no, we didn't. I know where we put it.
Yeah.
I know where we put it. We
Okay.
put student engagement activities on invoice 1 as a required activity. That's
Yeah.
where we put it. And
But
here's why we put it
tell
there.
about how we whittled it down, though. It went from
Yeah.
a huge.
It went from, and here's why we did this. It was so ambiguous, and we were getting people who were entering. I just remembered I should have talked through this more. We were getting, and Rebecca can remember, we were getting people who were doing these great demonstrations of like taking kids to Kuna, doing Governor's Cup, doing all of these great things with their students. And Brandy, so like you're at Governor's Cup today, which is, phenomenal. Great. That's student engagement. You're on at a Saturday with your students. And so, take pictures of that. That's engaging with your students. So wonderful things like that, to someone saying, my students, and I'm not faulting this at all, but someone taking a picture of their students sitting at a desk, with a worksheet. Yes, students may be engaged at that worksheet, but the levels of engagement are totally different there. So what does student engagement look like in your classroom? It's going to be totally different. It's going to look totally different. So what we are asking on this required activity is, in Wendy King's classroom, student engagement may look and feel and sound like this. Tell me what that is. Don't just send me a picture, because I may interpret that picture totally different. I may say, well, it looks like they're just sitting there coloring a worksheet. Rebecca's classroom, it may look like they're sitting and coloring a worksheet, but I don't know any of the backstory to that. I don't know that they walked across the street to Estill Springs and that they did a deep dive, and so I need to know that backstory. Yeah, I need to know what happened, to get to that culminating event of sitting and coloring and dissecting this picture about Estill Springs. So our student engagement may look, feel, and seem different in all of our classrooms and all of our schools. So we made that a requirement because guess what? Every one of us have students engaged every single day in all of our classrooms. It may look, it may seem, it may feel different, but I need just a little short brief. And you can put it in a Google Doc. You can take a picture, and then underneath the picture, you can, give me a little 1-sentence blurb of what's going on. It does not have to be some big elaborate thing. I will brag on, I had one teacher who tagged us in a Twitter post, and she had her students singing a patriotic song while they were doing an activity. Those are the kinds of things that, absolutely, that's student engagement. But give me the why, give me the little backstory. That's the student engagement. Teacher leadership activities. Everything on invoice 2 is optional. So Adam, I just want you all everybody to know that you do not have to do anything on invoice 2. You really don't have to do anything on invoice 1 except, orientation and, your pre-test student, student test, all of that. So everything is kind of, someone said it in another grant, it's a pick and choose your own adventure. That's the thing I love about this grant, is you get to choose what works for you and what works for your classroom and what works for, your school, your students. But in teacher leadership, you can do a peer coaching, peer mentoring. You can do the Newsella Certified Educator Program. We've got the book study. You can do the historical hometown history hunt. And then, of course, choosing between Washington or Williamsburg, trip this summer. So there's so many opportunities. It is, Adam, I love that word. It's almost overwhelming. But again, to use my dad's favorite quote, yeah, the IBM thing, it's going to be on invoice 1. And if you look, it is already on there. I've added it. It's under the biased learning training. So you can get $10 per module, and you can get 100 if you complete them all. And it's another badge. And it's a really cool badge. It's a MindSpark IBM learning badge. And I will tell you, those I've started those trainings. They're really cool. Those module trainings are pretty cool. But my dad used to say, "How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time." And so you get to choose any of these that you want to do. And you don't have to do any of them, but if you want to, again, it's just a great little opportunity to earn some extra money. I would call it my shoe fund. You can call it vacation fund. You can call it, whatever you'd like to call it. Amanda, do you have any questions, my dear?
No, I mostly wanted to make sure I wasn't wrong about anything or missing anything.
Well, that's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Laura, have we answered all of your questions?
Yeah, I think so. I was just getting ready to type one other thing. Can you tell me where to find the dates? I had the calendar pulled up and I didn't see it. Where to find the dates for the summer immersion program and the summer conference?
Yes, ma'am. And if they're not on the calendar, I need to add them on the calendar. So let me.
Well, I thought they were, but now when I pull up the calendar, it ends at April 30th or something like that. I'm not sure if I'm missing something or.
I need to add them on there. Let's add them while we're on here.
Washington is June the 20th. DC
I'm
is
sorry.
June the 20th. DC is June the
Okay.
20th.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let me. I'm gonna add them while we're all on here. We go to Washington D.C. June 20th through the 24th. If you're interested in the Charge to Colonial Williamsburg trip, that's going to be the 10th of July through the 14th. And then our conference, and I'll put all these in the chat too. Our conference, NCHE conference, is June 13th through the
I already
7th.
put the DC date. You put the other one.
The NCHE conference will be somewhere in the
Yeah,
week
it's
of June.
it's in
13th.
that week. Yeah, it's in that week.
And then Williamsburg trip will be
A 10.
July 10th through the 14th. And I'll add those to the calendar right now. I can't believe they're not on there. I apologize.
And this
So-
is way ahead of time to ask this question, but for the DC trip, how does that work? We kind of all meet up together in DC and
No.
start there. So
No.
we travel together, or
We travel together. It's a really fun
Okay.
trip. So what will happen is right now, I think we currently have 30 so many people that want to go. I'm hoping that everyone that wants to go gets to go, just based on, I think, and Dr. Evans and I we gotta.
This got a lot of people, and I'll just be honest about this, and I mean, we say it anyway, but it's based on participation. If we have folks that don't do anything the entire year and get very few hours, but then they want to go on the trip, they're not going to get an opportunity to go. So, we just don't open it up for people that haven't participated and done anything and just say, we put you in the front of the line. We kind of rank that because we do have a cap on how many we can take based upon budget. And then we kind of work backwards. So, but Wendy, I know, has pushed something out to kind of, and she has asked how many are get an interest level, but we're looking at numbers from 50 to 40 to 30, again, based if Corona, something happens again to where we're limited on the bus, where we can only have 25 and things like that. So, but yeah, it'll be based upon participation, and it's possible that we may have to turn some people away if they haven't really participated much in the grant. But we don't want teacher leaders to do all these hours and then get to, and somebody that hasn't participated say, well, I just want to do the trip. No, I'm
Right.
sorry. We want you involved in the grant throughout the year. That's what it's for. And again, it's not about the grant, but it's about this. The trip is reinforcing the learning that has taken place all year long, with your historians and with other sessions throughout this charge year 4. So it's not just a trip just to go look at things. It's integrated and it's a collective support of what we've learned all year long. So that's kind of a culminating project. So you get to see what you've learned and, you know, visit and things like that. And Rebecca's been, and of course, Wendy was talking about it there, but yeah, that's kind of how we determine who gets to go and things like that. So,
But what we do, Laura, is it's so great. We will meet in Lexington and everyone will ride a charter bus together.
Yeah.
And so we take you on charter bus. We pay for the trip up there. We pay for your hotel. We pay for everything. I think there were Rebecca, like 2 meals that we didn't pay for, roughly about 2 meals. 2 meals that we didn't pay for. Everything else is pretty much paid for. And then, we pay for your charter bus back. We pay for the hotel while you're up there. Everything is pretty much covered. But it is it's a wonderful, wonderful trip. Last year we were in Chicago. It was great, great fun. And you learn lots. They're long, long days, but lots of learning, lots of fun. So it's a super, super trip.
and Laura, there's lots of downtime built in the trips as well. We know you all are adults and we treat you that way, and we're not going to overshadow you. And in the evenings when we're finished after dinner or whatever, if we're covering dinner, you all are on your own. And if there are things you want to do above and beyond, that's totally great. And we've told NCHE, who we plan with on the trips, that we absolutely want fun things built in. We just don't want to spend 4 days in museums and looking at statues. We want activities that are going to be fun, even, going to the mall or whatever that may be, or eating at nice restaurants and things like that. But again, supporting what work we've done throughout the year. But again, it's all about fun. We don't want this trip to be, you're giving up your time, you're giving up 4 or 5 days here, even though you're getting paid, that's okay. But we want you to have fun and enjoy the trip as well as learn. So there'll be fun activities built in.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
So just to be clear, that with the invoices, we don't really have to even really worry about those much till closer to June.
That's right. So
Okay.
do not let it stress you.
Yeah. Adam, just keep it. Yeah.
Sorry, you may want to just check in periodically, and if
Yeah.
you have a that performance sheet, if you have yourself down for 30 hours and we only have you down for 20 hours, you may say, "Hey, Gabby, or send me a message." Send Gabby a message and say, I was at this session and you don't have me marked down. Because what I will stress, it's a lot easier to do those evaluations now or like as we go versus try to complete 20 of them at the end, because then you're like, I can't remember anything about that session. I can't, it's a lot easier to kind of check your progress as we go versus trying to complete 20 of those at the end of the summer. And you're like, I can't remember anything about that presenter. I can't remember. So I would just kind of periodically check your attendance. That's really the only thing you got to do.
Yeah.
That's my only advice.
That sounds good. Yeah, I've just been kind of confused and a little bit, just a little bit stressed about it. Like, because do you guys know what BizTown is?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've got a BizTown trip, and I'm gonna be trying to plan a living history museum pretty soon in the next couple months. So that's been a lot of that stuff, and then I've just been kind of just that, outside of the classroom trying to plan it, and then this, I've just been kind of stressing a little bit.
Do not let this stress you. But Adam, I will tell you, make sure you take pictures of the Living History Museum and BizTown, because those are awesome student engagement. And you can tweet those out for sure. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no, this should not be a stressful thing for you. I promise.
No.
Not at all.
Anybody else have any questions at all? Rebecca, we appreciate you being in and typing in the chat and putting in, about your experience and things like that. So, and then.
Yeah. We want Charge to be fun. We want Charge to be, like I said, just a supplement to all the great things that you all have already been doing and continue to do in your classrooms. And I will add, if there are things that you would like to see in programming, Rebecca knows this. I will hunt and peck and dig and try to find them. If it doesn't get added to this year's sessions, for next year, if there are people or sessions or topics or things that you all would like to see, please let me know. Shoot me an email, because like I said, you all are professionals. You all are the experts. You all know who you would like to see, or who you all would like to have present for you all. So please let me know. I count on you all to help me with those kinds of things as well. So today's been great. I hope I've answered. I hope that I've answered all of your questions, and that if you all need anything, know that we're here for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you guys. And I will send you all a session evaluation for today, just so you can get paid for this hour.
Oh,
I'll send that to you like right now. So you don't have to wait on me. I took a picture and I'll send it to you four. So
oh.
yay. All right. Awesome.
I want to do both trips.
I know. I feel the same way.
I had a hard time deciding because I didn't get to go the first time.
Oh, and
Because
listen,
I wasn't part of Charged then.
Williamsburg is great. Yeah.
I
Williamsburg,
know.
it's great. That's probably one of my favorites that we've done.
But I love DC too, and I haven't been in a while.
Yeah. That's a hard call. For sure.
And like going to Chicago, we had that teacher background. Like
Right.
we got to go do things that, we got to see kind of the background of
Right.
behind
Yeah.
the scenes
Yeah.
sometimes things.
Oh yeah. I know. It's a hard, you're like, what do we do?
I know it was hard.
Yeah. So what'd you choose?
DC,
DC? Yeah.
yeah.
I've had several people that were like, if you don't get enough people to go to Colonial Williamsburg, let me know. And I'm
I
like,
know.
No, it's funny.
I would be one of those. I'll be
Yeah.
packed and ready.
Yep.
But I haven't been back since the American History Museum. The
Right.
last time I was there, they were like redoing it. And that is one place that I want to go and look at because that's my favorite.